Hi, I'm Lila Bashan, and I'm sitting here with my mom, Dana St. Clair, and I get to be with her right now, and she's so awesome. I love getting the chance to talk to her, and so I wanted to ask you today, my mom, my amazing mom, persevered for like 50 years to write a book. We both wrote a book about like our area of expertise, and we both dedicated it to each other, which is really cute.
We did, yeah.
But I so like honor the fact that you persevered for 50 years and you got it out 2 volumes. The second volume's coming soon. And so I just thought it'd be interesting to hear like here it was like 50 years in the making. What's one of the parts of the book that you like the most?
Well, thank you for asking.
I'm sure you love all of it. I'm sure, of course.
Well, the thing that I know is the book that I wrote in my mid to late 60s is not the book I would have written in my mid to late 20s. I like the way Holy Well, my book, turned out. When I finally settled, after 5 very effective hypnotherapy sessions with a wonderful woman named Rita at District Hypnosis in Washington, D.C. Really fabulous.
It was a gift from me.
It was a gift from her.
Point that out.
When you asked me just now what's one of the parts I like the best, it's in chapter 13. They talk about triskaidekaphobia, which is the fear of the number 13. So, it should be in chapter 13.
Yeah.
So, in chapter 13, I also write about a book that came out a couple of years ago called The Book of Joy. It's a dialogue between the Dalai Lama, with whom I resonate deeply, and Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Yeah. Neither of whom had a sweetie pie, lovely early life. One of the things that I had already thought about myself, noticed myself, and was written about in this book is the difference in the ways that Buddhism and Christianity approach emotional well-being. And I grew up in the Christian tradition, and truthfully, there is not a lot about how to work with yourself emotionally in the Christian tradition. Whereas in Buddhism, that's sort of what it's all about. Buddhism is how do you show up in the world? What can you do about the way you show up in the world? How do you navigate inside yourself? And there are different conversations in the Book of Joy where the Dalai Lama is talking about something very difficult, i.e., having to leave Tibet in his early 20s because the Chinese were invading. And Desmond Tutu says, well, that had to have been so difficult. You must be despondent. And the Dalai Lama basically says, why be despondent? If you can't do anything about the situation, why despair?
Oh, yeah, his thing, change what you can change that doesn't make you happy and accept what you can't change.
And addressing that exactly, Desmond Tutu would go, well, how can you accept things that you can't change? How can you accept despair? Well, you work with yourself about it. There is so much available to all of us now about navigating your internal terrain because this life we are living happens inside of us. Your interpretations, your beliefs, your opinions make life groovy or gross.
It reminds me, I asked you recently, how can you tell the difference between whether you're suppressing something or just processing it and letting it go. You remember that? It was a couple of days ago. And you said it's how you choose to interpret it and how what you choose to do with it. And I thought that was insightful.
It's true. Yeah. It's true. In Holy Wow, the 13 chapters, the odd chapters are my story, how I found meditation, what I did with it, Beatles concerts I went to, all sorts of
4.
stuff.
She went to 4. I'm a little spoiler alert. She went to 4 Beatles.
I went to all of the Beatles concerts that happened in Southern California, which at that time, well, the Los Angeles area, they may have been in Anaheim, and I didn't make it there, but in Los Angeles, and it was a big deal at the time.
It's a big deal. It's like a really big deal. I cried when I saw Paul McCartney, so I can't imagine what it was like to see the Beatles.
Well, and Lila also got to see Elton John and his farewell tour. Right. Where was that? Krakow.
Yeah.
And I had seen Elton John right after
years,
right after I started meditating. I remember going to an Elton John concert at the Greek Theater near the observatory in Griffith Park.
Yeah.
Anyway, life, it goes on and on. And the person who decides whether you're having a good time or not is you. So the odd chapters are my story, which really up until the hypnotherapy sessions, like right after, and I started writing, never occurred to me to write about myself. Who would find that interesting?
I would. Well,
the even-numbered chapters take place in a venue that I created decades ago called the Interpretorium. And this is where beings who are out of incarnation are going to come and be human on planet Earth, H-O-P-E, hope. They go to the Interpretorium for orientation. Yeah. And so there's a lot that is discussed at the Interpretorium.
But do you believe the Interpretorium's like a real thing that actually exists in like the ether somewhere, or is it a construct as a way to explain things about Earth?
Yes, both. I figure there's got to be something that beings who are out of incarnation think they're going to show up here and just go la 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 la. Yeah. The reason it's called the Interpretorium is because as a human on planet Earth, you interpret every single thing that happens to you, every thought you have, every activity that seems to be directed at yourself, again, groovy or gross. You interpret everything, and that's how you decide. My childhood was horrible. My childhood was pretty okay. I made it through. We decide. So look at what you tell yourself about your life. If you think your life is poopy, to use my older granddaughter's terminology, it is. And if you decide your life is a work in progress, it is. And if you decide that you have a good life, you are blessed, fortunate, you are. What you see is what you get. I mean, how many decades ago did Flip Wilson have that TV show with Geraldine? And Geraldine would say, what you see is what you get.
I'll have to Google that. I don't know. I've never heard of Flip Wilson. But...
Well, I refer in Volume 1 to Geraldine, Bard of Flip, because what you see is what you get. If I saw Lila as a little child, she was intense. Very intense little child until she could talk and tell me all the things that I needed to do for her. Then things got better.
It's good to communicate.
I could have chosen to get pissed at my little girl and stay pissed. But why do that? And speaking of pissed, so poetic. When I was in my early mid 60s, I acknowledged that I'm getting older. I could be drifting out of this incarnation anytime. If I go out of this incarnation without writing and publishing this book, I'm going to be pissed. And I could be all kinds of poetic. I'm just going to be so upset. I'll just be disappointed. No, I'll be pissed. Fortunately, I don't have to go there.
You did it.
I did
You
it.
did it.
I did
Yay.
it. I wrote the book, and about half of it is published.
Yay. And
Yay.
the other half will be published soon.
Before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks for listening.
Thank you. Aloha.